Friends, today as we turn to this gospel lesson coming from the gospel according to Luke, we're mindful of a sad day, that this concludes our series on the miracles of Jesus. Aw, that's the collective awe I was expecting, and nobody did it. Well, we've been working through these miracles of Jesus, and we've seen lots of different ways that Jesus has done miracles, including last week, which almost didn't even seem like a miracle, but Him sending people out into the struggle of ministry. This week, we turn to this final piece of, after all of these miracles, what do people do in response to the miracles of God? So we look here and start with the story of Jesus going through a region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. And keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." And when he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. And then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except for this foreigner?" And then Jesus said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Let's pause for a moment to pray. Gracious God, it is a great and beautiful blessing that we are thankful for today to have your word before us. Open it up before us, God, that it may move within our souls and transform us, that we may not be healed just on the outside, but all the way through. We pray, O Lord, that you speak, for we, your servants, are listening. Amen. There is no doubt that one of the greatest blessings of all of life, far beyond the second in comparison, is the birth of a new child. We have on many occasions heard people say, that is God's great miracle of how this can happen. This child can grow within the womb and come and bring us such great joy, a reminder of new life. The innocent little smiles and the coos and the warmth. To hold a little infant wrapped up in swaddling cloth, just nestled into you with all of the warmth, warms your whole body all the way into your soul. What a beautiful blessing to have a baptism and a loving little child. But with every blessing, we recognize these little blessings can also have a lot of needs. And those needs move you from this, "Oh, this is so cute," and blessings, to ready to hand them back to their parents. To say that this little child was equipped with only one skill when they're born. Only one skill. And that skill is to cry. And that cry was created with a particular purpose in mind. That anyone sitting next to that child, especially someone in an airplane right next to you, recognizes something's got to be done for that child. That child needs something. And what that child needs is the very basic necessities that they're born with. They need to be fed. They need to have shelter and warmth. And they need to be cleaned on a regular, consistent, annoyingly all night long basis. But what is interesting about a little child as well is that a little child comes into the world with complete reliance on someone else. A child cannot survive on its own without someone taking care of it. Think about it. It needs absolutely everything. By itself, it can do nothing. And so, what does it do? It lets you know whenever it has a problem, whenever it needs one of those three necessities. And so we then jump into action and we provide the food and we provide the comfort and we provide the cleaning over and over again. So much so that we condition this child that every time the child makes a cry, it knows that it's going to get what it needs. And this lasts, well, all until somewhere in your 20s. And some of us never get rid of this skill. We open our mouth and cry, I need this. And so we are expecting, because we are entitled to get that care, we're expecting for someone to provide it for us, right? This is what I need. I am entitled to this. And so I will cry and make a fuss and complain until someone provides it for me. Sounds a little bit like this story today. These 10 lepers are walking along until they see Jesus. And they look at their situation. And they look around and they say, you know, we're entitled to be healed just like the next person. We have this leprosy, but God has failed us because God has not made us just like everybody else, and we are entitled to this. So they call out to Jesus, hey Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Now, I say it in this way because as we learn in the story, not everyone's motives are in the right place. They had been conditioned to think that when they don't have what everybody else has, God's failed them. They have been conditioned, just like you and me, to think that if my car is not as big as the car of the person next to me, or is not as new, or my house is not as big, or if I don't feel as good, or if I'm not as tall, or if I'm not as beautiful, or if I'm not whatever, fill in the blank, then God has failed me and set me on the wrong course, and I'm entitled to everything else that the person next to me has. This idea comes all the way from an infant that we've never learned to break away from. But today, friends, I am here to tell you that you are entitled to nothing in this world. There is nothing we're entitled to. We're not entitled to the air that we breathe. We're not entitled to the feet on which we walk. We're not entitled to the clothes on our backs or the shelter over our heads. We're not entitled to anything that we have. Not one thing. Yet, when these 10 lepers call out to Jesus, not entitled to a single thing, Jesus is moved to compassion to give them far beyond what they deserve. Yet when we call out to God in our life, even though we're not entitled to a single solitary thing, Jesus is moved to compassion to give us blessings over and over and over again in our life. And so Jesus was moved to this compassion, and He sees them and He says, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Not because they deserved it, not because they were entitled to it, not because they had done something great, but simply out of God's grace had they received His compassion. And here they go taking off. Yet the text says that something strange happens next. Verse 15 says, "Then one of them." How many? One of them. "Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back praising God with a loud voice. And he prostrated himself," which means he lays on the ground in front of Jesus' feet, "and thanked Him for the healing." Only one. You can't help but to recognize that this one saw this as a gift from God. Something that he didn't deserve. And that his response had to be in thanksgiving to God. Notice the response is the key piece to this whole story. It's for this reason that the early reformers, Zwingli and Calvin, established the order of service and what was necessary to be a part of worship. There were components that had to be there. And those components were that the Word of God had to be spoken. It had to be then relayed to the people in an understanding, so it had to be preached. And then finally, there was one piece that has to be in every single worship service, and without it, it is not a worship service. And that thing that is required is an offering. So it is their way of following along with the same story to say, God has given to you over and over and over again, and your worship to God is to respond to that thanksgiving. And which poses the question for all of us, how do we respond to the thanksgiving in our life? You see, we have opportunities to give. We have opportunities in our everyday lives as we encounter people who are struggling to give the love of Christ. We have opportunities to come to church and to give of our financial resources and volunteer our time to the church. And then as we find ourselves in the middle of our stewardship season, we have an opportunity to commit ourselves in a pledge for 2019 and to complete the pledge that we made and go above and beyond in 2018. Because God calls us out of His gracious love, and our response is to come back to God and offer our lives in thanksgiving. When this guy comes back and he's at Jesus' feet, Jesus then responds with a question kind of pointed. He says, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except for this foreigner?" Jesus acknowledges that there are so many of us who receive blessings every single day and never return thanks to God. Never come back and give back to God. Only one of these 10. You know, only 37% of Americans go to church on a Sunday morning. Yet we are considered the richest, most powerful country in the world. Yet only 37% come to church on a Sunday morning. And out of that 37%, I wonder, this is even telling for us, we are that 37%. How many of us showed up today with the intention of asking God for something else, as opposed to coming to church today simply out of thanksgiving for what you already have in your life? You may not have what you want in your life, but you still are blessed immensely. And so out of that 37%, are we down to 10% yet? Are we down to the one that has come simply to give thanks for the gifts that God has given us? For that 10%, there's another miracle that happens. That 10% is something that in our country has been whittled all the way down. As a country with great wealth and great success and great power, all we hear now is that being a person of faith or being a Christian is not necessary for society. We're trying to move as a country into a secular society where we can all rationalize and have reason, never recognizing that these are blessings from God in our life. Are we down to our 10% yet? Because this is what's about to happen. The second miracle. Then Jesus said to this man prostrate on the ground, "Get up and go on your way, for your faith has made you well." This is a strange statement because as you read it, you're thinking, well, Jesus has already made them all well, right? Jesus has already healed them. Why then does Jesus emphasize that this person has been made well while the other 9 out there, not coming to church on Sunday morning, not giving of their offering on Sunday, not pledging to their church, not giving of their life, not giving of the love they've received? Why are those out there? Why is this different that this one, this 10%, is healed and made well? Well, the trick here is the kind of healing that happens for that one. And the trick here that I want you to ask yourself is whether or not you want real healing in your life. 9 of these were healed from leprosy. 9 of these got what they thought they wanted. 9 of these showed up in church on a Sunday morning and said, "God, if only I had that thing in my life would be better. If only I felt better and I wasn't sick anymore. If only I didn't have to face what I have to face. If only I didn't have this addiction. If only I..." You fill in the blank. If only I had that thing, then my life would be right. And they got that thing and they went off and continued to be miserable in the world. But only the one that came back to Jesus after having gotten healed in his body, got the true healing, which was the saving of his soul. That is what's the point here. That is what we are here for. We are here for the second miracle. Knowing that food only lasts for so long, and health only lasts for so long, and these bodies only last for so long. But the real miracle is what Jesus gives to this one that returns. The 9 were focused solely on their physical ailment, while at the same time ignoring the glaring torment within their life. If you have a glaring torment within your life, you coming and asking God for more stuff is not going to do it. But you coming and saying to God, God, you've given me so much already. I thank you for what you've given me in my life. Now we're ready to move from entitlement to faith. And so, this step is what I want to give you this week. As we move into this Thanksgiving week, I want to help you move from entitlement to faith. And this is how we do it. There is a study that was conducted by Sean Atcher, a psychologist who teaches at Harvard University. And he suggested that we can train our brains to become more grateful by doing just one simple thing. And so they pulled together these subjects and they gave them the task that every day for 1 week they set aside 5 minutes. Do you have 5 minutes in your day? Do you have 5 minutes in your day? Every day this coming week, every day that week that they did this study, for 5 minutes a day, they sat down and they practiced gratitude at the same time every day and wrote down 3 things that they were thankful for. Can you do that? This 1 week, take 5 minutes at the same time every day and write down 3 things that you're thankful for. And because what happened, what they found in this research, is that when they came back to these people 1 month later, then 3 months later, then 6 months later, that there was a drastic difference found with the people who stuck with it over the week and the people who did not. And the people who stuck with it were found to be, watch this, happier and less depressed. Because they said it primed the participants' minds to search for the good in their lives. You see, that one saw the good in his life and saw where it came from. That doesn't mean that everything in your life has to be good, but you have to find the good. And then when you find that good, the second miracle comes true in your life. The happiness that you desperately seek is going to show up. Because then we begin to see all of the blessings that God gives us. This is the call for us. To not just walk away when Jesus hands us a blessing, but to come back to Him again and again and again and give our thanks and our lives to the one that gives us life eternal. We have that opportunity today as a part of our regular worship service to respond to God's Word in our life. We have that opportunity every week, and this day in particular, we have that opportunity. We can give back to God, or we can pretend like God hadn't done a thing for us, ignoring the fact that we have breath in our lungs. In this time of tithes and offerings, let's give generously as God gave to us. And also be mindful that we are giving to the mission of God here at First Presbyterian Church. We are pushing against the end of our year, and we are behind on our giving for this year. And we are questioning whether or not we're going to be able to make our budget for the remainder of this year. And as we received our pledge cards last week, and we continue to receive them, we are walking as people of faith, hoping that that 1% at least will respond by pledging for 2019. When you leave today, in the hallway there is a box and there are pledge cards. I encourage you to pray over how you will give in the life of your church as God has given graciously to you. So let's now return to God in this tithes and offerings, mindful also of a special offering today for Thornwell Home for Children. Let us give.